If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite moment, and subscribe for more thrilling humanity ***** adventures. Every interaction helps us keep bringing you more tales of humans shocking the galaxy, so don't miss out. The chamber of the Elder Council shimmered like a vault of stars. Cold light filtered through the crystalline walls, reflecting the faces of beings who had ruled the spiral arm for thousands of cycles. They were not warriors, not explorers, but ancient custodians of order, races that had outlived countless empires and recorded the rise and fall of species across galaxies. To them, everything living could be categorized, measured, and contained. Yet today there was a silence none dared break. A silence born of disbelief. Commander Verwin, broad-shouldered for his kind, adjusted the folds of his ceremonial mantle and spoke at last. His voice was gravel ground against stone, heavy with authority. Colleagues, what you have seen cannot be dismissed. The humans are young, reckless, and yet they display an abomination of behavior, keeping apex predators not as enemies, not as hunted prey but as companions. A ripple of unease spread through the council tiers. Some blinked their ocular fronds nervously, others coiled tighter in their seats. The holographic image suspended above them showed a still frame. A human man, his face weathered by sun and storms, seated beside a fire. Beside him sprawled a beast. Muscled. Clawed. A predator catalogued as Earth Shadowfang, rated by xenobiologists as one of the most dangerous land carnivores in the quadrant. Its bite force alone could shear through armor plating. And yet it lay with its head resting near the man's boot, breathing slow, calm, protective. "This is impossible," hissed Counselor Rivek, his translucent tendrils quivering. "Shadowfangs kill anything that moves. They do not bow. They do not yield." "Perhaps the humans drugged it," suggested another, though her voice lacked conviction. Verwin's eyes narrowed. "Or perhaps they have done something worse, bred themselves into predators of predators." He let the words hang, poisonous and heavy. For the elders, the idea that a young, untested species might rise above the natural hierarchy of danger was more than troubling. It was heresy. The council debated in murmurs, but none could deny the evidence. A series of recordings, smuggled from remote probes orbiting Earth, had shown similar scenes. Men and women walking with wolves, laughing as bears lumbered docile at their side, hawks perching on gloved fists. Even felines, apex hunters by every definition, stretched and purred under human touch. The question was not whether humans did this. The question was how. At last, the High Chancellor raised her slender hand, silencing the hall. "Speculation will not suffice. We must observe directly. Send an expedition to Earth, quietly. Do not interfere, do not expose ourselves. Simply watch. If this is true, if they truly keep the untamable as pets," she hesitated, her ancient voice trembling for the first time in decades, "then we must reconsider humanity's place in the stars." The order was passed without further objection. The council had no appetite for delay when fear had already taken root. Far from their crystalline chambers, across the wilderness of northern Earth, a human named Elias Rourke stoked the embers of his fire. The night air was sharp, filled with pine resin and distant echoes of predators calling to each other beneath the dark. Elias was a man of broad build and sharp eyes, his hands calloused from years of fieldwork, his voice rarely raised unless necessity demanded. He was not a politician, not a soldier. He was a scout, one of the many who charted Earth's harshest terrain, living months beyond civilization's reach. Beside him, stretched across the ground, was a shadow-given flesh. Thick fur shimmered with silver edges in the firelight, scars cut deep across its flank from battles long past. Its jaws twitched as it dreamed, revealing teeth like ivory daggers. Any zoologist would have named it a nightmare, a perfect predator. Elias reached down, brushed his hand along its shoulder, and the beast exhaled a sound more sigh than growl. "Easy, friend," Elias murmured. "We've had enough fights for one lifetime." The predator shifted closer, its massive frame pressing against his leg like a hound seeking warmth. High above, hidden in the dark canopy, a cluster of alien eyes watched in disbelief. The elder observers crouched within their cloaked vessel, recording every moment. Their instruments spiked in confusion. Fear pheromones from the predator were absent, replaced by something they had no word for in their language but which humans would call trust. Verwin himself leaned toward the projection, his throat tightening. This was no trick of implants or sedation. He recognized body language, posture, instinctual response. The predator was not enslaved. It was bonded. "How did he do it?" one of his aides whispered. Verwin did not answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the man below, who fed a scrap of meat into the beast's waiting jaws, then leaned back against a log with a sigh of contentment. The shadow Fang chewed once, twice, then lowered its head to rest beside the man's boot once more. The commander's pulse thudded with unease. For all his centuries, for all the knowledge of the elder races, he had never seen such a thing. Predators were not meant to yield. Predators consumed, destroyed, devoured. And yet here was a human, and here was the nightmare of his world, and between them lay no leash, no chain, only silent loyalty. It unsettled him more deeply than war. In the distance wolves howled. The Shadowfang's ears twitched. Elias smiled faintly, eyes reflecting firelight. Hear that, old boy? Even the pack knows better than to bother us tonight. The predator's lip curled in silent agreement, then relaxed again. The elders, hidden in orbit, recorded in silence. And as the night grew darker, the council chambers across the stars grew quieter still, each member locked in the same unspoken thought. If humans could befriend monsters, what would stop them from befriending worse? The image froze on Elias's firelit face, a man seated beside a nightmare, neither one fearing the other. The council had demanded evidence, and now they had it. And for the first time in an age, the elder races realized there might be something in the galaxy they did not understand. The forest was a cathedral of shadows, branches weaving into a vaulted ceiling that hid the stars. The fire's glow flickered across Elias Rourke's weathered face as he sharpened his knife with the unhurried patience of a man accustomed to solitude. Beside him, the shadow Fang stirred, lifting its scarred head to sniff the air before settling back into its bed of pine needles. Unseen by Elias, a shimmer rippled across the treeline. The elder observers had descended, their cloaking field bending light around their forms. They crept with the precision of species who had studied predators for millennia yet never dared walk among them. Their mission was clear: watch, record, and above all, avoid notice. But notice was unavoidable. The Shadowfang's eyes snapped open, reflecting the fire like molten gold. Its chest rumbled with a low growl that vibrated through the ground. Elias paused mid-stroke, his knife stilled against the whetstone, and turned his head slightly. "Easy," he said softly without rising. "What is it?" The predator rose to its full, terrifying height, muscles rippling beneath its fur, and fixed its gaze on the unseen intruders. Every instinct screamed danger, yet it did not lunge. It looked to Elias first, waiting. The aliens froze, disbelieving. Apex predators did not wait. They struck. And yet this one restrained itself because a man had spoken a single word. Elias stood now, knife still in hand, his voice calm but edged with alertness. "Who's out there?" The cloaking shimmer flickered as one elder stumbled back in fear. In that instant the shadow Fang surged forward, claws carving furrows in the soil, jaws bared. The elders scrambled, their field collapsing, revealing angular bodies and glimmering eyes beneath their robes. The beast halted inches from them, a thunderous growl tearing through the night. Alien hearts pounded. They had catalogued this predator as death incarnate, yet here it stood, unleashed, and the only thing holding it back was a man's steady voice. "Down," Elias commanded. The shadow Fang snarled once more, then lowered itself, muscles taut but obedient, sitting back on its haunches. The elders gaped, their disbelief nearly fracturing into panic. Elias stepped forward, his gaze sharp and unsympathetic. "Not many folks wander out here, especially not dressed like monks glowing in the dark. So I'll ask once, who are you?" Verwin drew himself upright, though fear tugged at the edges of his authority. "We are observers." "Observers?" Elias repeated, his tone flat. He gestured toward the beast, whose eyes never left the aliens. "And you picked the worst night to sneak around. He doesn't like uninvited guests." One of the smaller elders whispered, unable to help himself. "It listens to him. It restrains itself. This defies every principle of xenobiology." Elias caught the murmur and raised a brow. "You say that like you've been watching for a while." Verwin silenced his aide with a glare, then addressed Elias directly. "We came to confirm reports. No species has ever domesticated a shadow Fang. Should hate you. Should fear you. Yet it does neither. Why?" Elias studied them for a long moment. He saw the fear in their posture, the awe hidden in their voices. With a shrug, he crouched by the fire again, knife sliding back into its sheath. "I found him broken," he said. "Wounded from a fight he nearly lost. Could have let him bleed out. Instead I fed him, cleaned the wound, kept him alive. He gave me trust for trust. That's all." The elders exchanged disbelieving looks. To them, predators were immutable forces, terror given flesh. They had eradicated such creatures from their own homeworlds long ago, fearing extinction. The idea that a human could mend a predator and gain loyalty instead of death was more alien to them than any technology. Verwin's throat tightened. Trust is an illusion. A predator will always return to its nature. At this, Elias glanced at his companion. The Shadow Fang had settled back beside him, its great head resting on his thigh, golden eyes half-lidded in calm. Elias scratched behind its ear, and the beast exhaled a low, satisfied rumble. "Looks like his nature disagrees with you," Elias said dryly. The words stung. The elders had built their supremacy on the belief that they had mastered knowledge of life. Yet here was proof of something beyond their understanding. Another observer dared to step closer, curiosity outweighing fear. The Shadowfang's ears twitched, muscles flexing, but Elias laid a firm hand on its neck. "It's all right," he murmured. The predator stilled, though its eyes tracked the alien intently. The alien extended a trembling hand, then froze. No elder in recorded history had touched such a creature and lived. The Shadowfang leaned forward, sniffed once, then, impossibly, licked the alien's outstretched crest with a rasping tongue. The elder yelped and staggered back, his robes tangling around his legs, while Elias chuckled. "Guess he likes you." Verwin seethed at the display, though he concealed it beneath a mask of dignity. "You toy with powers you cannot comprehend. If you think these pets will remain tame, you risk calamity beyond measure." Elias's expression hardened. "You see calamity. I see loyalty. You're afraid of predators because you never gave them a chance to be anything else. That's the difference." The elders fell silent. Some studied Elias with dawning respect, others with suspicion. But all of them felt the same deep unease. If humans could bond with the most fearsome of beasts, what would that mean for the galaxy? Above the treetops, their cloaked vessel hummed softly, transmitting every moment back to the council. Across the stars, elder leaders watched the scene unfold, their certainty unraveling thread by thread. For the first time, the elders understood why the rumors had spread like wildfire. Humanity was not merely reckless, it was rewriting the laws that govern predator and prey. The fire crackled, sparks rising into the dark. Elias leaned back, one hand resting casually on the Shadowfang's massive shoulder, his eyes steady on the aliens. "You wanted proof," he said. "Now you've got it. Question is, what are you going to do with it?" The elders had no answer. Their silence was heavy, trembling with fear of what humanity's answer might one day be. The night pressed close around the camp, broken only by the fire's crackle and the steady breathing of the beast at Elias's side. The elders lingered in uneasy silence, their forms rigid as though a sudden move might shatter the fragile calm between them and the predator. Elias tossed another branch onto the flames, the sparks rising like embers of unspoken truths. "You're all wound up," Elias said, his tone almost conversational. "But that's because you've only ever seen things one way. Predator. Prey. Kill or be killed." He gestured toward the Shadowfang, whose golden eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. "What you're looking at isn't control. It's trust." Verwin bristled at the word. "Trust is for equals. That creature is no equal, it is danger incarnate. You mistake submission for loyalty." Elias's expression didn't change. He drew a stick from the fire, used it to sketch a crude outline in the dirt, four-legged, sharp teeth, a simple representation of a wolf. Long before humans built cities, we were surrounded by predators stronger and faster than us. Wolves, lions, bears. We should have been wiped out. But we weren't. He added another figure beside the wolf, this one upright, stick-limbed, carrying a crude spear. Instead of running from them, we learned to walk beside them. Wolves became dogs. Cats hunted pests with us. Birds of prey hunted for us. Even the beasts we feared most, we learned to tame. The elders watched, transfixed despite themselves. Elias's words cut against the foundation of their philosophy. To them, survival meant eliminating threats, sterilizing their worlds of predators until their ecosystems were stable but hollow. Elias leaned back, his eyes reflecting the fire. "You say a predator's nature can't change. But our history says otherwise. We didn't rise despite predators. We rose with them." Verwin's jaw clenched. "You are speaking of domestication. A slow, artificial shaping. What you claim to do with the Shadowfang is impossible." Elias gave a dry chuckle. "Is it? Tell me, what's more likely? That your rules are ironclad? Or that you just never tried?" The beast beside him lifted its head, as if sensing the weight of the conversation. Elias laid a hand on its thick fur. "He doesn't follow me out of fear. He follows me because I stood with him when he was at his weakest. That kind of loyalty runs deeper than chains. An elder observer, younger and less restrained by centuries of doctrine, tilted her head. But if this is true, if humans can bond with creatures like this, what happens when you carry that bond beyond your world? The question silenced even Verwin. It was the unspoken dread pulsing in their minds since the moment they had first seen Elias by the fire. If humans could tame their own nightmares, what prevented them from taming others? The galaxy was full of horrors lurking in dark jungles, oceans and frozen plains, apex beasts kept at bay only by extermination campaigns. Elias noticed the shift in their expressions. He didn't soften his words. Maybe that's what frightens you. You spent ages killing what you fear. We learned to shake its hand. Imagine what happens when we start doing that out there. The elders' instruments buzzed with a new transmission. Their ship projected a stream of images into the air above the camp, captured from orbiting probes across Earth. A human woman jogging beside a pack of wolves. A falcon diving at her command. A bear lumbering peacefully behind a fisherman. Everywhere humans stood shoulder to shoulder with creatures that should have torn them apart. The projection flickered across Elias's face. He watched without surprise. The elders recoiled, muttering in alarm. To them, this was contagion of the worst kind, a philosophy that inverted their deepest laws of survival. Verwin forced his voice to steady. You court disaster. Predators are not allies. They are weapons waiting to turn. Funny, Elias said, his gaze narrowing, that's exactly what your people sound like when you talk about humans. The words struck harder than claws. Several elders fell into silence, stung by the mirror he held up to them. Verwin stiffened, fury rising behind his composure. You will answer to the council for this, he growled. Elias didn't flinch. Then bring them here. Let them see with their own eyes. Or better yet, let them sit where you are now with his breath on their skin, and see if they still think trust is weakness. The Shadow Fang rumbled low in its throat, not in threat but in solidarity. Elias's hand pressed lightly to its neck, steadying both beast and moment. The campfire burned lower, shadows stretching long. For the elders, the night felt like a chasm opening beneath their certainty. Their doctrine had no room for this man, this bond, this challenge to everything they believed about survival. Elias fed the fire another branch. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of iron. You came looking for proof. Now you have to decide if you're strong enough to accept it. The elders said nothing. The crackle of flames and the soft exhale of the predator filled the silence until the night itself seemed to hold its breath. And above, unseen beyond the stars, the council chambers would soon erupt with arguments that could shake the balance of the galaxy. The elder council chambers were no longer silent. Across the tiers, voices clashed like steel, each echo sharpened by fear. Projections of Elias Rourke and his predator rippled above the chamber, the man seated calm, the beast resting like a hound at his side. To one faction the images were a revelation. To others they were an omen of catastrophe. They call this loyalty, one counselor hissed, his segmented mandibles clattering. I see only a weapon poised to strike at their command. If humans can tame their predators, what prevents them from unleashing armies of monsters? Armies? Another countered, her crest flaring. Or perhaps guardians. Humanity has revealed a path we abandoned ages ago. Perhaps our exterminations blinded us to what was possible. Commander Verwin struck his staff against the floor, silencing the noise for a moment. His eyes burned with conviction. Do not be deceived. What you witnessed was not harmony, it was manipulation. Predators cannot be trusted. We erased them from our worlds because they threatened our survival. Humanity's arrogance will spread plague through the stars. We must act now, contain them, isolate Earth, or risk our extinction. The Chancellor's voice cut through, brittle with age yet commanding. You call for fear. Yet fear has ruled us too long. Perhaps it is not the humans who are reckless but us, for refusing to see beyond our terror. The debate fractured further, tension mounting like a storm. Words of extermination battled with words of possibility, and no consensus could settle the chamber. Far below Earth's sky, in the wilderness where the fire had burned low, Elias stirred awake. The Shadow Fang rose beside him, sensing unease. They had been left alone for hours, the aliens vanishing into the trees, but Elias knew the silence was deceptive. The council would not let such revelations fade into the night. At dawn the truth arrived. A shimmer of light parted the forest, and Verwin stepped forward with a cadre of elders. Their eyes gleamed, not with curiosity now but with judgment. You will come with us, Verwin said, his tone brooking no refusal. Elias stood, brushing ash from his hands, his predator at his side. Not much of an invitation, is it? This is no longer about you, Verwin growled. It is about what you represent. The council demands demonstration. If your bond is true, prove it. Elias studied him, then the others, reading the hunger in their faces. They wanted reassurance or failure, something to justify their fear. His jaw tightened. What kind of proof? The answer came in the form of the sky itself. The elder's ship descended, cloaked no longer, its shadow blanketing the forest floor. From its hold, sleek drones poured forth, their metallic forms humming with lethal intent. Your creature faces them, Verwin declared. Unrestrained. If it remains loyal to you amid blood and chaos, then perhaps we will believe. The Shadowfang growled, hackles rising. Elias knelt beside it, his voice low, steady. Remember what we talked about. Trust me. The first drone lunged. The beast moved like lightning, claws tearing metal apart in a spray of sparks. More swarmed, weapons firing beams that seared the air. The Shadowfang roared, ripping through machines with terrifying grace. Elias's commands cut through the chaos, short, sharp words. Each one the predator obeyed instantly, never striking Elias, never breaking its circle of protection. The elders watched, transfixed. The camp became a blur of claws, fire and shrapnel, yet the bond held. The predator fought with fury but never lost control. When Elias barked, "Enough!" the Shadowfang froze mid-lunge, jaws clamped inches from a drone's core. It dropped the machine, snarling but restrained. The silence afterward was heavier than any roar. The forest floor smoked with wreckage, but the man and beast stood unscathed, breathing as one. You see, Elias said, his voice echoing in the stunned air. It isn't fear. It isn't chains. It's choice. Some elders looked shaken, others inspired. Verwin alone glared, his conviction eroding but not broken. You think this proves loyalty? He spat. It proves only how dangerous you are. That beast could destroy armies at your command. You make yourselves gods over monsters. That is not trust, it is tyranny. Before Elias could reply, the attack came. A squad of alien mercenaries, masked and armed, burst from the treeline. Rival factions within the council had grown impatient, unwilling to wait for a vote. They sought to end the threat by ending the man. Blaster fire seared through the clearing. Elias dove, the Shadowfang leaping to shield him. Claws raked through armor, snarls tearing the dawn. Mercenaries fell one by one, but their numbers pressed hard. Elias rolled to cover, drew his rifle and fired with precise economy. Each shot dropped a target, but it was the predator who turned the tide. Yet even in its fury, even as blood sprayed and screams filled the forest, it heeded every call Elias made. A single word could halt its rampage, redirect its strike. The last mercenary collapsed beneath its weight and Elias shouted, "Stop!" The Shadowfang froze, chest heaving, blood dripping from its jaws. It looked at Elias, not at the fallen prey. Slowly, it backed away, returning to his side, trembling with adrenaline but calm. The elders stared, horror mingling with awe. Verwin's lips trembled, words failing him. The truth was undeniable. This was no trick, no leash. It was partnership. Elias wiped blood from his brow, his eyes like flint. You keep talking about danger. But the only danger I see is your fear. You're terrified of anything you can't control. That's why you killed your predators. That's why you'll never understand us. His words struck deeper than any weapon. The elders, who had long believed themselves masters of life, now faced the possibility that they were cowards instead. Verwin's voice broke the silence at last. The council will decide your fate. Elias looked down at the Shadowfang, whose golden eyes met his. No, he said, his tone low and steady. The council will decide its own fate. Ours is already chosen. The predator pressed against his leg, calm now as though it understood. Above, the council ship withdrew its drones, broadcasting everything across the stars. The galaxy was already watching, already judging. And in that judgment lay panic and possibility alike. The galaxy held its breath. Broadcasts of the forest battle reached every world tethered to the council's networks, each civilization pausing to watch the human and his predator stand shoulder to shoulder amid wreckage and blood. Some saw hope in that image, others dread, but none could look away. In the council chambers, the debate had dissolved into chaos. Councilors shouted over one another, demanding either immediate extermination of humanity or an invitation for them to join as equals. The chamber had never been so divided. At the center, Chancellor Thaler raised her withered hand, her voice cutting through the turmoil like a blade. Enough. We have seen what the human has shown us. He has proven that our fear blinded us and our traditions shackled us. Whether we embrace or resist, change has already arrived. The question is not whether humanity belongs among us. The question is whether we can endure the truth they reveal. Her words left the chamber trembling. Verwin rose, his jaw tight with defiance. This is not truth. It is corruption. Do you not see how dangerous it is to allow predators to remain unchecked? This man may restrain one beast, but others will not. If we do not act, humanity will unleash terrors beyond comprehension. We must strike Earth before it spreads. The chamber rippled with unease. The call for war always had its supporters, and Verwin's conviction still carried weight. But even as his words echoed, images replayed above them. Elias halting the predator with a word, the beast lowering itself at his command. It was not domination. It was trust. Elias himself was brought before the council, the Shadow Fang pacing silently at his side. Alien guards kept their weapons trained, though their hands shook. The human looked worn from battle, his face streaked with soot and blood, but his gaze was steady. You dragged me here for judgment, Elias said. But let's be clear. It isn't me you're judging. It's the idea that fear doesn't have to rule you anymore. His words carried into the hushed hall. Even Verwin flinched at the certainty in his tone. You think I tamed this creature, Elias continued, resting a hand on the predator's neck. The Shadowfang's ears twitched, golden eyes fixed on him with an almost human attentiveness. But I didn't. I trusted it first. I bled beside it. I gave it a choice. That's something your council never gave anything it feared. A murmur spread. Some leaned forward, captivated. Others recoiled, unwilling to surrender their terror. You call us dangerous, Elias said, his voice deepening. But danger isn't the same as evil. Humanity's predators taught us to respect strength, not erase it. We grew stronger because of them. Maybe that's why we survived every extinction you thought should have finished us. The Shadow Fang growled softly as if punctuating his words. Verwin rose again, fury coloring his features. You speak of respect while standing with a beast that could slaughter us all. What happens when it turns on you? What happens when your kind breeds thousands more? You offer not peace but a sword to hang above our necks. Elias met his rage with stillness. If that's what you see, then the problem isn't the sword. It's your fear of it. The chamber fell into silence so deep it was suffocating. For the first time in centuries, the council hesitated to follow the call of fear. Then, in an act no one expected, Elias stepped forward and turned to the Shadow Fang. The predator straightened, muscles taut. Elias laid down his rifle, pushing it across the floor, then stood empty-handed before the beast. You want proof? He said, voice carrying into every corner of the hall. Watch closely. He whispered a command, soft but firm. The Shadow Fang lowered itself, rumbling with reluctance. Elias extended his arm, exposing his wrist, vulnerable and bare. The chamber gasped as the predator leaned in, jaws opening, teeth gleaming like knives. Its breath washed hot over his skin. For one heartbeat it could have ended him with a snap. For one heartbeat, Verwin's vision of chaos could have come true. But instead, the Shadow Fang licked his wrist, slow and deliberate, then pressed its massive head into his chest. Elias's hand rose, steady, resting on its crown. Choice, he said again, softly this time, yet it resonated louder than any weapon. The council erupted, some in shock, some in awe. The predator had chosen restraint, chosen loyalty, with nothing binding it but trust. Chancellor Thaler rose, her voice heavy with finality. The proof is undeniable. Humanity has revealed what we were too afraid to see, that strength and compassion can coexist. That predators need not be our enemies if we dare to trust. Elias Rourke, your bond with this creature is not a threat. It is a lesson. And the council will heed it. Verwin staggered, the ground beneath him shaking with the force of his disbelief. You condemn us all, he whispered. You think this bond is salvation. I promise you, it is doom. He turned and stormed from the chamber, his shadow trailing long behind him. Elias stood still, the predator beside him, as the council delivered their verdict. Humanity would not be isolated. Earth would be invited to stand among them, not as subjects but as equals. And the bond between predator and human would be studied, not destroyed. But Elias did not smile. He knew the fight was not over. Verwin's words were seeds of fear, and fear never died easily. Somewhere in the galaxy, others would rise who wanted to see humanity crushed before it could spread its dangerous idea. Yet as the Shadow Fang nudged his hand, Calm and unafraid in the heart of an alien council, Elias felt the weight of victory. He had not only survived but forced the galaxy to confront its deepest terror. Later, when the broadcasts ended and the council dispersed, Elias sat alone with the Predator in the quiet of the chamber's gardens. The Shadow Fang lay across the stones, eyes half closed, muscles finally at rest. Elias looked up at the alien sky, stars glittering with promise and peril alike. "Looks like we've stirred up a hornet's nest," he murmured. The beast's tail flicked once, almost amused. Elias leaned back, exhaustion settling into his bones. "They're scared of us. But they should be. Not because of what we'll destroy, but because of what we'll prove." The Shadow Fang rumbled, curling closer, its body pressing against his side with surprising gentleness. Elias let his hand rest on its fur, feeling the steady rhythm of its breath. For the first time in days he allowed his eyes to close. The galaxy might be watching, judging, fearing. But in that quiet, with a Predator who had chosen him above all else, Elias knew the truth that no council vote could erase. Humanity was no longer alone. And the universe would never be the same.